Hey guys, it's Dean. Welcome to Manful Yoga. In this video, I'm going to be talking about flexibility and joint health. So flexibility is one aspect of fitness that is typically neglected in favor of strength or endurance, especially in men, right? We like to do more high impact or more strength focused exercises, and we don't see flexibility as that important. Even though flexibility helps to increase our strength, decrease our recovery time, and prevent injury, we'd still rather spend our time strength training. So, and if it hasn't already, this lack of flexibility training will eventually catch up to you. So if we don't spend time on our mobility, on flexibility, then it's going to come up in the form of either restrictions in what you can and can't do. It might limit your performance, so you won't be as strong as you possibly can be, or it could lead to injury. And then when it comes to joint health, these two aspects of your fitness are very closely interrelated. Your joint health is dependent on the flexibility or the ability of your muscles to lengthen. And when your muscles are tight and when they're shorter, that places more strain on the joints. So by working on your flexibility, we can help to alleviate that pressure on the joint, and we can help to increase the strength of your joints, so to speak. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about some common issues related to flexibility and joint health. I'll talk about some challenges and some causes of limited flexibility. So why do so many people have issues with flexibility? And then I'll talk about how to increase your flexibility. So what can you do on a regular basis to address this lack of flexibility and help heal your joints? And then finally, I'll talk about what I do with Manful Yoga and some ways that can help. So number one, common symptoms or common issues when it comes to flexibility. Number one is just a lack of flexibility in general. And this is typically because we are inactive, we don't spend enough time on flexibility training, we might spend more time on endurance and strength training, and we just don't have flexibility training as a regular part of what we do. It's kind of an afterthought when it comes to fitness, right? When we reach the end of a workout class, and then we say, okay, now do some stretching or do 5 minutes of stretching, a lot of people will get up and leave the workout, right? If you've been to a workout class before, you're familiar with that. And if you just have been in fitness environments in general, stretching is just not seen as that important. Number two is not enough attention to flexibility training. So touching on what I just said with stretching, just working on your stretching is not flexibility training. Stretching is part of flexibility training, but it is not flexibility as training as a whole. So in order to successfully address flexibility, we need to be working on it, I would say at least 2 to 3 times a week, 20 to 30 minutes per day. And most people just don't take the time to spend it on flexibility. And when we don't, our muscles get tighter, they become more susceptible to injury, and it can decrease your performance in other fitness areas. Next reason is inactivity and sitting. We're just not spending enough time moving, and that leads to shortening and tightness of the muscles. A lot of this is related to our lifestyle. We have jobs where we have to sit. We drive in cars. We sit when we're at home. So when we're not being active, our muscles get tight. And then the last reason is age. As you get older, your flexibility decreases, and maybe you didn't have to work on flexibility when you were younger, but as you get into your 30s, 40s, 50s, and beyond, it's something that you now have to address. You don't just have it, like you used to when you were younger. It's not something you can take for granted anymore. So let's talk about, I'm going to explain some of these flexibility issues in a bit more depth now. So let's talk about joint pain and flexibility. So I mentioned this at the beginning, but these two things go hand in hand. And most of us have experienced joint pain at some time or another, right? We've had knee pain, ankle pain, hip pain, back pain, shoulder pain. And a lot of us have looked at that and said, oh, well, my shoulder hurts, so the shoulder is a problem. When really, we should be looking at the muscles that connect to and work in conjunction with the shoulder. So joint pain is rarely caused by the joint itself. It usually has to do with the muscles that connect to and work with that joint. So we need to look more at, and you can't really do much. You can do a little bit with the joint, but it's much easier to work on the muscles that connect to the joint. So it's much easier to work on the muscles than on the joints themselves. So we need to be working more on the muscle part of this system. Number two is movement restrictions. So If we're active or we're exercise regularly, then we will eventually experience some sort of movement restriction at some point, especially if we're not working on flexibility training. Again, as we get older and if we're not spending time on flexibility training, then we're just going to notice decreases in our performance. And that's just the sad reality of how our bodies work and the inactive world that we kind of live in. Unless you're a nomad or a farmer, but everyone else, or you have a more active job. But for a lot of us, we're sitting at offices, we're not doing much, and that is leading to less flexibility, and that will cause movement restrictions. Number 3 is that aging thing again. As we get older, our muscles get tighter. It's just what happens. There's no way around it. There's no way to prevent it. And again, we might not have had to work on flexibility before, but as we get into our 30s and beyond, we do have to start making that a regular thing, especially if we want to continue to do what we enjoy doing. That means that we need to spend more time on flexibility training. It means we might need to do a little bit more warm-up. It means that we also might need to do a bit more stretching when we're finished. But it's very doable. We just have to make it a part of our routines. Sedentary lifestyle, talked about this multiple times now, but sitting at a desk wreaks havoc on your body. Your hips get tight, your shoulders get tight, your chest gets tight, your core gets weak, your hips get weak, your ankles get tight, your calves get tight. So there's just a lot of tightness happening when you sit and you don't move. Even if you stand up instead of sitting down at a desk, you're still going to get tight. So we need to make sure that we're doing something to address the reality of our sedentary lifestyles and kind of undo that stress that it places on our body. And then yoga and flexibility. So one of the main reasons why people come to yoga is because it does work on flexibility. And by that, works on your joint health. It's one of the few types of exercise where flexibility is a primary focus. And a lot of other types of exercise just neglect flexibility altogether. So a lot of people are coming to yoga to work on their flexibility. Now let's actually talk about what can you do to improve your flexibility and what can you do to strengthen your joints or prevent pain in your joints. First part is working on flexibility but mobility as a whole. So one part of, I mentioned this before, but just stretching is not enough and just flexibility is not enough. Stretching is part of flexibility, flexibility is part of mobility, but in order to address muscle and joint health as a whole, you need to work on building strength within flexibility. So instead of just, for example, reaching my arm overhead, right? Let's say I go my arm all the way up here. Instead of just holding it up, I want to do something that builds strength in this position. So I might want to hold a weight up here, or I might want to do a handstand or something like that. So it's not enough just to have that range of motion, but we also want to be able to exhibit strength in that extended range of motion. So that's part of it. Not all programs do that, so you need to make sure that you're doing exercises or doing yoga in a way that does build strength in flexibility. The other part, let's talk about how to get rid of joint pain. So your joint pain can and will go away when you start doing 3 things. Number 1, when you build strength and mobility in the muscles that attach to the joints. So if I'm looking at my shoulder, for example, if I build strength in my biceps, my triceps, and also work on my pecs and on my upper back muscles and my rotator cuff. So if I work on all these muscles that connect to the shoulder, if I work on their mobility, so I work on the ability of these muscles to stretch, but also to have strength within that extended range of motion, then I can help to prevent joint pain. I also want to make sure that I'm correcting technique. I'm using correct technique, or I'm using proper movement patterns. So if I'm doing something with improper technique and causing muscular imbalances or doing things in a way that's inefficient for my body, that's going to lead to joint pain. So I need to make sure that I'm doing things correctly. So I need to have a good teacher, or I need to be using the right tutorials to make sure that I'm moving in a way that's safe for my joints and for my body as a whole. And then number 3, we want to, again, work on exercises that combine flexibility and strength. So not just stretching, but actually building strength within extended range of motion. And then the other thing we want to do is make sure that we have a balanced training program. So this means that we're doing pushing and pulling. We're working on the front and the back side of your body. We're not just building muscle, but we're also working on flexibility, or working on balance. you want to make sure that you're doing a program that covers many aspects of your fitness and not just one or the other. So all strength is bad, but also all flexibility is bad, right? We want to do something that does a nice smorgasbord of everything, so to speak. All right, so how can Manflow Yoga help? So one of the programs that I have is called Flexibility, Mobility, and Joint Health for Beginners. And this is a program that you can use with your existing workout program to work on flexibility that you've neglected. And if you have the proper mechanics and you're exercising with a proper technique, this is the program that I'd recommend for you. I also have a program called the Strength Foundations course, which is really important for combining flexibility and strength, which is what I talked about a lot in this video so far. So that program is really good for working on that. Those workouts are 30 to 40 minutes per day, and I recommend doing at least 3 workouts per week. But really, all of my programs in general and all of my workouts help to address flexibility and joint health. It's just kind of the nature of the exercises involved. And then in terms of whether or not you're going to fit into this or how you're going to fit into this, we've developed something called paths at Manflow Yoga that helps you kind of identify with your specific goals and challenges. And the main paths that fit into this category who are interested in flexibility, mobility, and joint health are one or more of the following. Number one is low impact fitness. So these are people who have had joint health issues in the past or joint pain from other exercise programs, and they want to do something that's more joint friendly. We also have injury prevention and rehab. So this helps to address some of the underlying causes of injury or pain, which part of this is flexibility and mobility related. And then also we have our yoga for athletes. And these are people who are doing running, who are weightlifting, who are doing other types of exercise, but they need a program that helps to work on their flexibility because they understand the importance of flexibility. They just aren't doing it. Maybe they don't want the traditional yoga approach, which is, kind of the spiritual gongs and incense kind of thing, and you're just looking for yoga that works on your flexibility for performance. Then that's something that we focus on really hard at Manflow Yoga. So if you watched this video and you enjoyed it, please leave a like, leave a comment if you have questions or you want to say something. Share it with a friend, and then make sure you're following me on social media. We've got stuff. I've got stuff regularly on Facebook, on Instagram, and on YouTube, and different content on each of those channels. So if you want to learn anything more about what I just said, head to the blog at the link below. You can learn more about flexibility, mobility, and joint health. Again, the causes, some of the challenges, how to fix it, and also some of the programs that I've created to help address that. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.